Welcome, everybody, to Kreate-A-Fighter, with Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate allowing players in tournament to pick and choose the special moves that they want for their characters in the form of custom variations. This show is to focus on the things that you want to think about when you want to build a character, all the different matchups. We have none other than one of the most famous specialists in the community, Biohazard, joining us, and he's going to run us through Kotal Kahn. There's a lot of options. A character like Kotal Kahn especially, we're going to look at these moves, we're going to weigh out their pros, their cons, and then think about what playstyle it is you want to create, and then look at which of the moves that we explain will fit that the best. So, Biohazard, as you are one of the most famous grappler players in the NRS community, let's start with this, right? Kotal Kahn, you're looking at an empty variation, there are no moves. Let's go through the moves one at a time and give an explanation as to what they do, maybe what they're not so good at. So let's start with Grand Discus.
So Grand Discus allows Kotal to amplify his high projectile, making it a mid projectile. Grand Discus is going to be very useful if you're coming in on the opponent with a string of some sort and you just want to be safe. At the same time, Grand Discus can sometimes get a combo as well. It's really used for the safety, not putting himself in a bad situation.
And actually, on the subject of the discus, the next version of altering it, the directed raise.
Directed raise would help a Kotal player if they need another projectile. You've got the standard projectile that Kotal has is only a high. It's easily seen, it's easily ducked. With a directed raise, that at least gives Kotal another projectile to fight characters like Baraka or other characters that struggle against zoning, struggle against getting in, and that will definitely help him in those kind of matchups.
Next up, we have Tonatia Burst, which is just a simple airborne attack. He does a small burst above his head. It does decent damage against airborne opponents, but it's quite slow on the startup.
You're not going to see a lot of Kotal players using this because even though it does get him an anti-air, it doesn't really get him any extra damage. It's going to be very, very situational, and you won't see it used a lot in competitive play.
Now let's take a moment to go over the 4 totems that Kotal has access to, arguably his biggest game plan changing options.
So the Amaquali totem is Kotal's damage totem, one of his most used totems in tournaments and in competitive play. It gives him a damage buff, and every time you stack a totem on top of another totem, it increases the damage. He can stack up to 3 total. This goes for all of the totems that he has. This totem, I think, will be very useful if you're playing a command grab Kotal. Anytime you get a hit and you have one of these totems out, is going to increase his command grab damage. And the command grab already doing 18%, now will do upwards of 20 to 25%. Which is really, really strong for basically an unblockable, you have to jump move. The Teotika totem will have some uses for Kotal if you want to be very, very defensive or try to reduce the amount of chip damage you're taking from projectiles. So against a character like Cetrion, the Teotika totem would be pretty useful. The only drawback to this totem is that it takes a really, really long time to even pull out the totem, unlike other totems that have a very quick animation and he's able to pull out the totem fast. The Chikatok totem is definitely one of his newer totems. It wasn't seen in any variations prior to the change to customs. The Chikatok totem, I think, will be one of the more explored totems now that we do have customs. Players are going to try to build game plans around this totem, coupling it with the Grand Discus or the Tekuani Mal, because with those moves, you have to spend the bar, and with Chikatok totem, it gives him access to more offensive bar at any given time. It lets him regenerate his bar faster. The Etzli totem as well is going to be useful for playstyles that maybe are a bit more defensive, but at the same time trying to do some offense, because you need to get damage with the Etzli totem out to allow Kotal to heal his health back. It can have its uses, it's just not going to be as useful as some of his other stuff.
Also worth noting as well that the only combination of totems you can have is going to be your damage and the damage mitigation together. Anything else will require you to have just one form of totem, and they can't be mixed together in the same way. But moving on to what I'd say is one of the more common Kotal Kahn moves, the command grab.
The pros and cons of Huey as a command grab: it is a mid command grab. Mid command grabs in this game are generally very strong because high command grabs can be ducked ducked. The same way with the throws that can be ducked. Mid-command grabs cannot be ducked. You have to short hop or you have to jump. It's going to have some pretty good tick throws for Kotal. Now the drawbacks to having these tick throw options is that the opponent may also know that you have these options and may jump in those situations and then punish you. So it's going to be up to the player basically to make Huey effective.
So next up we have the God Ray, which we previously saw on Ascension, which places the Ray at 2 specific ranges as opposed to just on top of him.
I don't think you will be seeing it too much in competitive play. He does have other moves that he could put instead of God Ray to help out his mix-ups and things like that. God Ray is only going to be used in small certain situations, and usually it's just better to be able to put the God Ray on yourself and just get health that way.
So now we move on to the Panther attacks, the Tekwani Maul, which is the straight cat charge. What is this doing for Kotal?
So Tekwani Maul is going to be super useful for Kotal, especially against any zoners. This is a must-have move. Anytime you amplify Tekwani Maul, he becomes invincible to projectiles. If the opponent were to block it and you amplified it, it's completely safe.
And then an additional version, albeit technically a different move, which is the Air Tekwani Pounce.
It is very much like Tekwani Maul in that is invincible to projectiles if you spend the bar. It is also going to be completely safe if you spend a bar. So coupling it with Tekwani Maul might be useful against zoners because it gives you options, not only full screen, but once you jump in the air, you also have another option to deal with projectiles.
And finally, last but not least, the Kahn Cut, which is the meterless launcher previously seen in MKX as a standalone normal, now a launching special. What is this doing for Kotal Kahn?
So Kahn Cut is going to be Kotal's best way of getting extra damage and maximizing his combos. Paired with a move like the Amaquali Totem, you can get a lot of damage. Also, having it with a command grab, on block, Kahn Cut is punishable. The command grab, if you make the right read, is punishable, but at the same time, if you make the right read, you get really good damage on both. So that's up to the player. It's very, very risk heavy, but also very reward heavy.
Now we've looked at every attack that Kotal Kahn can equip. Let's look at this now as you now know what the moves do. You're thinking about what custom variation can I build? Let's say you're going for a specific playstyle. So let me kind of let you take the reins here. You're looking at Kotal Kahn fresh. You're looking to maximize what the character does for you. You as a competitive player, what are you looking for, and which of these moves will tick those boxes?
If you're choosing Kotal, you probably chose him because you want to play a grappler. I'm assuming, maybe. That could be a choice. And so you want to throw on a Huey for that option, having the mid-command grab. Some good abilities that you can pair with the command grab. Personally, I've been using Amaquali Totem and Kahn Cut. So you basically get really, really good damage on anything. You have a really strong command grab, really, really good damage, and then the Amaquali just amplifies all of that damage. All of those damage buffs that Kotal is getting is just compounded on each other. So that's a great variation for general play if you're not looking for too specific matchups.
Are there any other key variation types that you think might fit the character competitively?
You gotta put on Tekwani Maul, obviously for zoners, like I've said before. Tekwani Maul is going to be able to just run through those projectiles, get Kotal in, get him to start his game going. So maybe you can do a build with Tekwani Maul, Huey, and Amaquali Totem. You're still going to get pretty good damage because of the totem. You still have the options of the command grab, and now you have an option to get around projectiles. Another build is to switch out the Tekwani Maul and replace it with the Grand Discus. This allows you the options of good damage, command grabs, mix-ups, and all that, but more safety with the Grand Discus. Anytime the opponent were to block a string, you can just end it in Grand Discus, create that space, and so you're not going to have to worry about being pressured by the opponent or having to deal with a throw mix-up. You're going to be far enough away, and then you can play neutral from a much safer situation.